Welcome into Win the Line for Week 14, presented by the 33rd team. My name is Tanner Kern, joined alongside former CFL defensive lineman Maxx Forde. Max, we are rolling through the season. We only have a few more weeks of the regular season left before we head into the playoffs, and we have a doozy on Thursday night. Could be the best Thursday night football game of the season, possibly setting records for the least amount of points ever scored in an NFL football game. The Pittsburgh Steelers against the New England Patriots. And we have a mismatch here. Steelers defense versus Patriots offense. We'll break that down in a minute. But some injuries to note in this game. Ramondre Stevenson is out. Trent Brown is questionable for the Patriots offensive tackle. And then Landon Roberts, a linebacker for the Steelers, is also questionable. Looks like both those guys will play. But Max, first question here. What do you think of Ramondre Stevenson? How big of an injury is that for the Patriots in moving the football down the field?
I mean, they haven't been able to move the ball very well on offense regardless. Having a guy like Ezekiel Elliott who has some experience helps, but we also know that those RBs with the tread on the tires a little bit, they start to get a little bit less effective. So Zeke is a big name. I think he can still fill in there. You can definitely trust him to protect the quarterback, do those kinds of things where experience definitely helps out. But maybe he's not the same kind of effective runner that Ramondre is anymore. So it's a blow for an offense that really can't afford to lose anybody.
Yeah, I mean, they need everyone healthy. It doesn't matter if you're an A player, B player, C player. Like the Patriots need their full army just to move the ball up and down the field. Every time we talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm always blown away. Their defense is fascinating to me. They're in the bottom third of the NFL in yards allowed per game, but they give up the sixth least amount of points per game. They're very good in the red zone, and they force a lot of turnovers. We break it down every week, but when you look at their yards per game allowed, it's just mind-blowing to see how good they are when it comes to efficiency in the red zone. One guy to look out for in this game, TJ Watt, second in the NFL in sacks with 14. How do you see the Patriots countering him and the Steelers pass rush as a whole, knowing that Bailey Zappi is not great under pressure?
Yeah, I think whenever you have a pass rush that's going to be as effective as Pittsburgh is with TJ Watt, you want to try to get the ball out quick if you can, which is something that the predecessor to him and Mac Jones both did, and Tom Brady always was great at getting the ball out quick. Also, maneuver in the pocket a little bit, maybe step up that half little step there. Also, move in the pocket if you can. It's a little bit better, easier to do if you got a quarterback that's fleet of foot, which maybe not the case here. But if you can move the pocket, change that aiming point, gives your offensive line a little bit of help there as well. So those are things you can try to do to try to help the offensive line. Is of course chips. I talked about Ezekiel Elliott already in pass protection, so he's a guy that is able to come up and step up and give you that little chip to help that offensive tackle. One of those things that I always hated as a defensive end, because most of the time you can play it, but every now and then you'll get one where I feel like they can just get you right in the kidneys and just like crippling. So what about for yourself as an offensive lineman? Is there anything that you like to do to try to counterbalance those effective pass rushers?
Well, hopefully they get the run game going early. If I'm an offensive lineman in this situation, you don't want to put a lot of pressure on Bailey Zappi. You want to be able to effectively run the football. I don't anticipate New England's going to be able to do that, though, with the way their offensive line has played this season. They are the fifth worst scoring offense in the NFL. I think they're going to be forced to throw the ball downfield. If you guys follow any of Josh Larkey's stuff over at the 33rd team as well, he actually had a parlay today. It was a $25 parlay that he posted. Not Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, 225 plus, and then Bailey Zappi 225 plus, and then Mitch Trubisky 225 plus as well. It pays out over $500. So he anticipates there's going to be a lot of throwing in this football game. I believe there's probably going to be a little bit just because we look at the offensive line. They're not going to be able to run the football effectively. So I think a lot of quick game and then a lot of screens out of the backfield with Zeke as well. So going back to your playing days too, Max, like when you're in this situation, you know you're going against an offense that's just totally deflated and a quarterback that doesn't have a lot of experience. How are you coming into this game versus if you were going against a guy that's very seasoned in the backfield?
I feel like you just want to, I don't want to say it's different than that seasoned guy and that you want to come out quick, because you always want to come out quick, but there is a little bit of feeling out sometimes when you have a guy that is more seasoned veteran and knows what he's doing in there. Whereas with that young guy, if you come out quick and kind of set the tone, you can kind of rattle them. Like I know a couple years ago, we had that quote that played for a little bit where Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts. It's like that kind of a thing where if you get in his head early, it can last the entire 4 quarters of the game. So definitely emphasis on starting fast, which I know it's cliche probably for most weeks, regardless of who you're playing, but there's a real difference in maybe the effect that it has against that young quarterback.
Yeah, I think the team that starts the fastest and in the trenches, the team that the unit that gets the most success early in this game is going to really have the advantage here, because you're playing with two teams that just aren't very confident on the offensive side of the ball. So if the Patriots can come out, find success early in this game, probably settle for field goals, but move the football, that's a huge win for them. And I think it's going to result in a cover if they're able to do that, just because of how many points are going to be scored in this game. It's not going to be a lot. Moving into our next matchup of the night, Baltimore defense versus the LA Rams offense. I want to give a shout out as an offensive line guy. I want to give a shout out to this Rams offensive line. They've allowed less than a half a sack over their past 3 games. They beat up a very good defense last week, the Cleveland Browns. Through the air and on the ground, they're able to move the ball effectively. But Max, you think that the Ravens have a massive advantage coming into this game. So tell me why.
I mean, you talk about how good that the Rams are at stopping guys from sacking their quarterback. The Ravens are tops in the league at getting to the quarterback. So they've been playing out of their mind. Their pressure rate to sack rate, whenever they're getting into the backfield, it seems like they're getting them down to the ground. You've got guys playing really well. Justin Madubuike, maybe one of the more underrated interior linemen. He's at, I guess, end in the 3-4, which, yeah, still interior, I'm counting. But you don't really see a lot of guys get a lot of sack production from those kind of spots. He's got 10 sacks on the year. You got Jadeveon Clowney, who I think we talked about on the show when he signed there. We're talking he's probably more known for stopping the run, and he's been getting a lot of production in the sack department, playing a little bit of a queen chess piece role too. You see him dropping a little bit more than he probably did early in his career, making plays from dropping and coming up in run support, all kinds of stuff like that. This defense is very flexible, I would say. Like, they have a lot of different ways that they can beat you, and they've just been playing really solid football. And I don't think that the Rams have what it takes to stop them. I think if they have any kind of a shot, it's because they have a veteran quarterback in Matt Stafford, who does know how to manage those pockets, kind of take that half step up where a guy would have had edge would have had the quarterback dead to rights. But they take that half step up, and now all of a sudden he's whiffing. So I think Stafford maybe is the key for the Rams there, but I just really like this Baltimore front against the Rams.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, Roquan Smith, since he's come over from Chicago, has just totally changed the dynamic of this front seven, this defense as a whole. I mean, they are aggressive. They get after the quarterback, and they're coming off a bye week as well, which helps them in that spot. Another guy to look for, Jadeveon Clowney, one of my underrated players on this defense. Doesn't get a ton of credit all the time. It makes a huge difference. 7.5 sacks this week, this season. I see him getting after the quarterback this week. Max, out of curiosity, we're talking odd versus even front. And if you guys don't know what that is, it's basically how many people are on the line of scrimmage for the defense. Are you an odd front guy or an even front? So 3 people or 4 people?
So all through my career, I always played in 4-man front. So that's kind of where I feel at home. The 3-4 is a little bit different. For me, I feel at home in the 4-3, but I get why you go into that 3-4. You got some bigger bodies in there normally. 4-3 is my home. So that's kind of what I like to play and feel comfortable seeing.
Yeah, the rare times that I did play defense, I like to 4-front, because you can almost work one-on-one with a guard if you are playing defensive line, right? And a 3-front, that nose guard in 3-front, I just feel bad for them. They're just going to get your job is to pick up people so the linebackers can make plays. It's not a fun job. If you guys are a 4-front or 3-front guy, let us know in the comments.
Well, and too, like, if you're in that 3-front, normally the ends are kind of lined up, head up on the tackles, and it's just a weird angle for rushing because you got to like kind of step out, come back in, and I don't know, just that 4-man front. There's like I said, I get why philosophically 3-man front is popular too, but the 4-man front, it's more fun to play for me. You're playing more. There's more chance for you to get production, whereas 3-4, a lot of it, the linebackers are expected to get the production. So,
yeah. So a quick story, in high school, we actually played a 3-front. So we played a 3-4 and we played 3-3 stack a little bit. But when we were playing defensive end, you're lining up in a 4-eye. If you guys don't know what a 4-eye, it's inside shade. Your defensive linemen's lining up inside shade of the tackle. And it's a terrible job. It's not fun at all. You can't pass. You're expected to pass rush from the inside. You're expected to keep contained sometimes when you're lining up on the inside. It's not fun at all. So I'm a big 4-front guy. I like blocking as an offensive lineman against the 3-4 just because there's less guys in the box. But if I'm playing defense, I want to be in a 4-front. But anyways, another good front we're going to talk about here. The Atlanta Falcons defense moving into our budget plays. So these are under $3,000 DFS defensive plays. The Atlanta Falcons defense going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. They're priced at $2,900. And the biggest story for the Buccaneers this season, their inability to run the football. And I don't blame Rachaad White at all. Rachaad White is one tremendous running back. He runs hard. He averages barely over 3 yards a carry at times, but when he is doing, he's earning every yard that he gets, right? It's not because of the offensive line in many cases. So one of the hardest rushers in the game. This offensive line is just not ready to run the football yet, and they have Baker Mayfield playing quarterback, who I like Baker, but he is up and down. I see Atlanta causing trouble for this unit this week with guys like Calais Campbell, who actually destroyed Tampa Bay in the first matchup of the season between these two teams. So how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, Atlanta has a very experienced front. Is the first thing that jumped out at me when I was looking at this front before the season. They got, Calais Campbell's 37 years old. You don't see a lot of guys his age doing it at that physical of a position and still doing it at the level he does. You got David Onyemata, who's been doing it for a while within that division, even being on the Saints previously. You had Grady Jarrett. Obviously, he's on IR now, but another guy that's been doing it for a while. Bud Dupree also. Like, all four of these guys I just named are over 30 years old, which I know is not maybe old to the general population, but NFL, especially defensive line, a physical position like that, that's definitely more of a senior group. But with that, you get experience. And those guys have been bringing that experience and putting it on the field. And you see week in and week out, they're just a physical group that's going to make it tough on the offensive line that they're going to be playing against. And so here you already talk about Tampa Bay has problems with the run. They are a bit better offensive line than pass protection, but if they're gonna can't run the ball against a team that's more physical than them there if they can't do it against all these other groups they've been going against. And just that veteran group in Atlanta, I think that experience, the ability, it's just going to come together this week, and I think this is a good matchup for them.
Yeah, another good matchup. Look at what Calais Campbell did to Tampa Bay last time. 4 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble here. Atlanta, surprisingly, the NFC South, they do play some decent football in the NFC South on defense. They're 7th in least points allowed per game. They've been very good in this area. Now, a lot of their opponents haven't been the best offensive teams, but still, you got to tip your cap to them for how well they've played on the defensive side of the ball. Then we go into the Denver defense. We were taking the Denver defense this week against the Los Angeles Chargers offense, priced for $2,800. We were talking before the show. If we would have thought, at this point when the Denver defense gave up 70 points to the Dolphins, we'd be talking about them in week 14 as a strong unit. Probably would have been. So we called ourselves crazy. The Chargers haven't looked great. The offensive line's done a decent job protecting Justin Herbert, but they can't run the ball at all. And there's some really good talent up there, like left tackle Rashawn Slater. So the Broncos, I think, are the move here, Max. Why do you like them against the Chargers?
Yeah, like you said, I think even on the show earlier this season, I said we're probably not going to be talking about Denver a lot. And I think this is the second week in a row we've got them in our budget plays. So, hats off to them, first off, for turning their season around there. But I really like what they've got up front. They've got a solid physical group up front. I know when we were looking at that Miami game, and they haven't done as well against the run, I'll say that. Last week they did better against the run. We've been seeing them take steps and improving week in, week out. Whereas with LA, the Chargers, they have those pieces like a Rashawn Slater, but they just haven't been able to find the groove that you want to see them get into on offense. They've had some good games, no doubt, but they've also had their weeks where they kind of just disappear. Like, we're coming off a game where, they did cover, but they scored 6 points. So, it's just this group has been kind of up and down, whereas Denver, since around probably as we got into October, November, they've just been a very solid group on defense. And you've got also in that defensive secondary, I know we're talking about the trenches here, but that defensive secondary, you got Pat Surtain back there kind of patrolling the airways. It's also kind of nice feather in the cap. So,
yeah, and the secondary's best friend is that defensive line. 5 sacks last week against C.J. Stroud. Even though they lost the game, they were in a position to win it. Russell Wilson threw an interception, but the defense did play pretty well and gave them a chance to win at the end. The Chargers they don't look good offensively. It seems like they know that the writing is on the wall for Brandon Staley, and they can't run the football at all. It's not like they haven't tried to run the football. They stick with it, but the offensive line just can't get a big enough push, and they can't find the holes to break through here. So, yeah, last week only scoring 6 points. They had multiple chances. I know it was a rainstorm in New England, but they were still set up inside the 50-yard line multiple times from the Patriots. Yeah. Poor play on offense. They just couldn't convert there. So I see guys like Nick Bonito and Dak Allen having really good games here and shutting down this Chargers offense. Max, you got to pick one here. You going Atlanta defense versus Baker Mayfield, or are you going Denver defense versus Justin Herbert?
I think this week I am going to spend up I think it's just an extra $100 there, but I am going to take Atlanta. The offense with Tampa Bay, I think, is a little bit less scary of a group than you have in LA. Like, I know we've talked about they've been up and down, but those ups, they have had some pretty solid weeks for the Chargers. So there's that. And then also just as a group on the defensive line, especially, I really like what Atlanta does. Like, they don't necessarily have that big superstar. You could say maybe Calais Campbell, but he's definitely not in his prime anymore. He's very, very effective player still, but he's not the Calais Campbell we saw a few years back. And so they're missing that superstar, but they just have such a strong group across the board that it's a fun group to watch. And it's a group that I'd be betting on this week.
So I'm going to go against you. I'm going to take Denver defense versus the LA Chargers offense. I've watched LA the past couple weeks. I just haven't seen them in any sort of rhythm. Justin Herbert has a lot of upside, but the lack of their run game really does hurt him, puts the pressure on him. And I think this Denver defense, while they don't stop the run, they're good against the pass and they can get after the quarterback. So better matchup, in my opinion, going with Denver for $2,800. But either way, I don't think you can go wrong in this spot. Well, Max, week 14, it's concluded. We're moving through. We got week 15 next week, and we will be back with another show on Wednesday. So make sure you guys check out the 33rd team for more content. Check out Max's offensive line and defensive line rankings on the website, and we will see you guys soon for another episode.